Blake. I'm Ronnie. All the good names are taken podcast. And Blake, today we're going to talk a movie that frankly should get more acknowledgement on this platform. John Carpenter's 1978 classic, Halloween.
Yeah, a movie that Ronnie for sure is in every horror fan's top 10, an absolute classic. And I would say it's your typical silent masked killer who chases a bimbo and her friends around. It seems like most of the movies made in the 80s did this formula.
Yeah, it's really simplistic. Blake, guy breaks out of the mental institution after being there 15 years and stalks three kids, all throughout the day. And originally, this movie was called The Babysitter. Originally, this movie was called The Babysitter Murders, and if they changed it the last second to Halloween. Blake, do you think that this movie would still be as widely popular 47 years later if they hadn't changed the name?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just too good of a movie. I mean, as long as they didn't mess with anything, if they left everything exactly the same except for the title, it definitely could work. And plus, Ronnie, if you do that, you're not handicapping yourself to Michael being only come out one night, a year for Halloween. Like he could come out at any time. And if he's after babysitters instead of his sister, I mean, he could literally be a different character in every movie. So yeah, as long as they left the score in there and everything else the same and just kept it simple, I think the Babysitter Murders could have been a huge franchise.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think you make a great point there that if it was just about babysitters, then you don't have to come up with a plot device every movie of him escaping the night before Halloween. And he could just escape and go after babysitters because that's pretty much what he's doing in this movie. I mean, he breaks out and Laurie Strode, whose dad is a realtor. She's the main character of the movie. She's dropping keys off at a house that's the Myers house. I guess I should have brought this up at the beginning of the movie. You know, a girl gets killed, and it was in this house, and he sees her. And then for the rest of the movie, he's stalking her. She sees him outside of her school. She sees him driving down the road looking at her when she's walking home from school with her friends. She sees him standing by a bush. She sees him in the backyard looking up at her through her window. And then we as the audience, we see him following behind them as her and Annie go for their babysitting job. So it's a really, really simple tale of what's going on in this movie, Blake.
It does a really good job of building tension, Ronnie, throughout the day. Like you said, him just following her. And I tell you what really helps with that tension is the score of the movie. We kind of get a light piano tone while he's following her throughout the day. And then at night, when he actually starts killing, that score really ramps up. I think the score is probably one of the most important parts of this movie. What say you?
Yeah, I consider the score like one of the main characters in the movie, Blake. You got John Carpenter's Halloween theme, which is iconic. You got the shape stalks, which is another popular theme in there. This is one of those movies, Blake, that if I'm sitting at home and I turn my lights out, I can watch this movie. The music creeps me out so much, and I think the music is one of the huge reasons why this movie is so popular. Until recently,
you take this score out, and it's not the same movie. I mean, can you imagine, just for example, Jaws?
Yeah,
if Jaws is, when the shark is about to attack Quint in the boat. Can you imagine if the Jaws theme wasn't playing?
Yeah, it wouldn't be nearly as effective. And I think it's one of the reasons up until here recently, this movie was, the highest boxing independent movie, horror movie of all time. So, I mean, a lot of people, Blake, online, they love Donald Pleasance. They love the character of Dr. Loomis. He's pretty much
he's kind of like the Jack Nicholson, Ronnie, when you think about it, because he chews up the scene when he's in, every scene he's in, he chews it up. And I got a little hot take for you, man. I think Loomis is an overrated character. he's beloved in the franchise, but for me, to be such a smart doctor and to know just how evil Michael is, he really fumbles, man. He makes so many bad choices. I mean, let's talk about Annie's father, who is a main character in this movie, Sheriff Brackett. Brackett wants really to shut down the town and do house to house searches and all this, and Loomis talks him out of it. I mean, there's an argument to be made, especially when we get into later parts of the franchise, that Loomis is just as big a villain as Michael. I mean, he's responsible for those deaths.
Yeah, Lee Brackett, who's a great sheriff, ignores his instincts of when Dr. Loomis tells him this story about, I've been with this guy for 15 years. He's pure evil. I've watched him just stare at a wall, and he's not looking at that wall. He's looking at what he's going to do when he finally breaks out. And now, Sheriff, he's broke out. And Lee Brackett's like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to contact the TV and the radio and the newspapers, and we're going to get the word out to the people. And Loomis is like, no, because they'll see him on every street corner. They'll see him behind every bush. It'll create chaos and panic. Just tell your men to keep their eyes open and their mouths shut. So you got that mistake that Loomis made. And then he spends the rest of the movie, Blake, hanging out at the Myers house. And that allows Michael to wreak havoc on Haddonfield.
Yeah. And the kills when he's wreaking havoc. Ronnie, the kills. Now, there's not much gore in this movie, and I think that's why I like it so much, is it's just simple. And there really, if you think about it, there's only 3 or 4 kills, but there are some really good kills in this movie, starting off with his sister Judith in the beginning.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about that. Judith gets stabbed over and over, and we first person watch the guy walk out, and the mask comes off, and we find out it's a 6-year-old boy. Fast forward 15 years later. He kills the mechanic, Blake, but we don't get to see it. How you reckon that guy died?
He's probably so scared he had a heart attack. Can you imagine?
No. And then, Annie's death. He slits her throat. And then Bob has a brutal death. He stabs him into the wall. And then Linda gets strangled. And then he sets his sight on Lori Blake. And he goes across the road. And she really takes it to him. Stabs him in the neck with a knitting needle. Stabs him in the chest with a knife. And we get the sit-up scene. And he's trying to strangle her. And then, boom, Dr. Loomis is there. He shoots him 6 times. He falls out the window. Loomis... And then Jamie Lee Curtis is saying something about a boogeyman, Blake.
Yeah, and it's such a... People argue about this, what she actually says. And she says, that's the boogeyman.
And he goes, a matter of fact, it was. And then he goes and looks over the rail, and Michael's gone. And boom, they hit that music, Blake. And then all you hear is breathing. And then it cuts off, and it's like one of the biggest what-if endings in horror movie history. It's fantastic.
It's really scary because he's still out there and you don't know where he's at.
I mean, I can't think of a more iconic ending with that music and the way you see him, and you get to see like the different scenes or areas that he could possibly be and that he's been at over the course of the movie with just him breathing.
Guys, comment down below. Is Dr. Loomis a good character? Does he make a lot of bad decisions in this franchise? I think so. What say you?
Don't forget to like and subscribe. And Blake, that's 1978's John Carpenter classic, Halloween. We'll see you guys next time.